as I begin class this morning for having to rush because of my not knowing how to take the correct turn due to construction. But we're here now, and we're going to have, I don't see a clock. There's the clock. And we want to stop, Marvin, about 10:15. Okay, a bell. We'll listen for the bell, and you help me listen for the bell. I should be able to hear it. Is Deloy Smith and Larry Smith here? There's the Wheelers over there. Is Deloy Smith here? Sometimes she has come to Emporia Avenue. I forget which congregation she goes to. But she and Larry, her husband, they help support another Nigerian in the Benin City area. You all help Felix Ahegiator, and he is in Benin City proper, and then just outside of, on the south side of Benin City, which is a 4 million population city, Deloy and Lawrence help another preacher named Jonathan Legoda. And so sometimes she's been here, and I wrote her a letter a few weeks ago and said, hey, I'm going to be with the Emporia Avenue congregation. Maybe I'll look for you there. Brethren, how many of you have ever experienced an earthquake? Did you get it here too? Because I am unplugged from the news. I get a newspaper on Wednesday and Sunday, and I've had different things going on and just kind of missed things lately. But I started hearing some people talk yesterday at some point, and I wasn't even sure they were talking about our area. But there had been an earthquake in our area, and I guess it hit you too the day before. So yesterday I'm hearing that, and I'm thinking, well, I don't know what. Well, then last night, I mean, it was two of them in Norman they felt. I didn't feel the first one the night before, but last night, right after that big ball game, and I'm kind of sitting there watching a little bit more of the baloney after the LSU-Alabama game, and Diane's at the computer doing a little stuff there, and boy, I thought, what is that noise? And the next thing you know, everything just shook. Scared me to death, and I just jumped out of my little old office chair that I sit in to watch a football game in the living room and said, get under the couch! And when I tried to shove that couch, but I was too weak and old to get the couch up, and by then it had stopped rattling. We had a few things fall off our shelves, and then we all went outside, and other neighbors came out and scared us to death. Did you feel it that way? Woo! And they said it was the 5 point something. 5.6 in Oklahoma, the biggest earthquake they've ever had in Oklahoma. Man, that frightened me. And I did think, look at the power of God in this world and underneath the ground. And I'm telling you, my wife Diane I married her, she was widowed. And her first husband, Joe, and they were missionaries in New Guinea, which is near Australia. And Joe got sick with cancer and died and so forth. And then I wound up meeting and marrying her as time went along. But Diane was used to earthquakes because they have them over there, and she laughed at me. And well, they just, it's... But anyway, I thought that was something. Now let me decompress some more and we'll start talking about Nigeria. Oh, we've got the slides up here. Very good. Brethren, let me say this, that I was going to say it to Sister Smith, brother and Sister Smith, and I'll say it to you all. I don't have great information this time, nor will I have next time, but in 2014, Lord willing, if you have me come up, I'll have some information directly about Felix and the congregation that he works with, the old Uselu or Selu Church of Christ in Benin City, Edo State. This next trip, I didn't work with Felix on this trip. We didn't have the great workshop, Marvin, so I didn't see him. This trip in 2012, we will have, Lord willing, the great workshop. He will attend the great workshop, which is probably 7 to 9 hours away from where he lives. But I'll see him there with 400 to 450 other preachers. But I won't be able to see the work. I'm not going through Benin City in 2012. But in 2013, the great workshop will be just outside of Benin City in a place called Ologbo. They have a large congregation, a large building there that we can meet in Ologbo, just south of Benin City. And Felix will be there. And then I will do some work in Benin City. So in 2013, Lord willing, I'll get to work with Felix and see the brethren there at the Uselu congregation. It's got a different name right now, and I've left that information out in my car because I hurried in here, Gary. But in 2013, Lord willing, I'll be able to spend some time with him and give you a direct report, having spent some real serious time with him then, and the brethren there then. I don't have any remote, and they'll control me from the back, I guess, as we say next slide. But, whoops, we want to go back to the first slide. I was just practicing there. The next slide we'll see in a minute. But now, you know, brethren, we just passed the 7 billion population mark. I did see that in the paper. Did you see that? And it was right at the very end of October where they said, okay, now the world has passed the 7 billion mark. And it took, according to the statistics that I saw, it took 31 years maybe or so to get from 5 billion to 7 billion people in the world. And it's going to take, they say, statisticians say, about 37 or 38 years to go from 7 billion to 9 billion. The growth rate is slowing up just a little bit. Now, this is a picture of the continent of Africa, and according to my information, it doesn't have quite 1 billion people on it just yet. But a ton of the expected growth in the coming years is going to take place on this continent because the average age on the continent is so young. And you know, in Nigeria, women have, the average birth rate of women is 6.4. Now, what is it in the U.S.? About 2.2? Oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right, now the laser, is that where the star is, maybe? Yeah, thank you. Okay, here we go. So right now there's 900 something billion people on the continent of Africa, and I always like to point out that here's Nigeria, and it is the most populous country on the continent by double. It has 159 million people in it now. All you have to do is Google populations of the world, and you're going to find out that it's the 8th most populated country in the world with 159 million people in it, or so the last time I looked, which was a few months ago, so probably got more than that. But Egypt and Ethiopia, each of them have 79 million people in them. Those are the next two most populous countries on the continent. So if you double each of those populations, you know, either one of those countries, even doubled, are not quite what Nigeria has for population. So I like to mention that to brethren, to let you know that when you're involved in the work of God in Nigeria, you are involved in the most populated country on the continent of Africa. And do you know, in Lagos, we'll look at the city of Lagos, but to show you how fast the population is growing, Lagos is a city of about 15 million people. And Lagos and Ibadan in Nigeria both are said to have about 15 million. And then Cairo, Egypt has about the same population. And it's either one of those three cities that have the most population in the world, but everybody says in the very, very near future, it won't even be a question. Lagos and Ibadan will have the most population of the cities on the continent. And something else that's interesting to me about Lagos is every year right now, it adds the size in population. It is adding enough people what we have in Tulsa, Oklahoma. When you look at Tulsa, Oklahoma, I think the population of Tulsa is about 400,000 or 410 or 390. Now, Lagos is adding to its own city proper every year right now over 400,000 people. As a matter of fact, it's about 450,000 people. So before long, Lagos is supposed to have 22.5 million people and so forth and so on. And so this is getting to be more and more a populated area. And then I wanted to mention one more thing before we go. You know, from this map, I always mention that there's a little over 400,000 members of the Church of Christ in Nigeria. Now, I read in a Christian Chronicle about a year and a half or 2 years ago, and I might have mentioned this last year, somebody said in an article on the front page of the Christian Chronicle, it's somebody that doesn't go over there very often, but he heard the number that there was 800,000 members of the Church of Christ. And so now I see that number in different publications. That's not right. It's a little over 400,000. That's the best, most accurate information we have in our brotherhood, but that's still a lot of brethren. And per capita, the most members of the Church of Christ per capita are in Malawi, right there. It's a small country with about, I think there's 10 million people in Malawi, but there are more members of the Church of Christ per capita of that country's population than anywhere on this continent. So I wanted to point that out to you as well. All right, now here's Nigeria, and you've seen this map each time. We won't spend too much time on it this time, but let me get my laser here. There's Lagos with 15 million people, and Ibadan with 15 million people. There's 21 schools of preaching in Nigeria. And they do some of them are really, really good and have really, really capable teachers. The best one, for my money, is the Jos School of Biblical Studies right here in Jos Plateau State. That area across there is called the Middle Belt of Nigeria. All of this is solidly Muslim. And, just the other day, Gary, did you see in the paper? I heard it on the radio, or I saw it on the strip on the TV watching probably sports and saw it run across the bottom. But in Maiduguri, there was something that went on. I can't remember what it was. I think it was a bomb or something, and there were some people killed in just the last 2 or 3 days. And I thought, I'll read about it or I'll hear about it better, but I didn't. But there's violence. Al Qaeda is up in there, and then here in Maiduguri, it's called Boko Haram. It's kind of how it looks when it's spelled out, and it's that phrase in Arabic stands for against Western education, and they are radical Muslims, and so there's some activity going on in a bad way up in Maiduguri. Jos, there's always a lot of killing and stuff, and I've talked about that last year. You just watch in late December or early January, you'll read, violence in Nigeria, and it'll be coming out of Jos. But we have a great school of preaching there, and 9 of the teachers on staff at Jos have been to Freed-Hardeman and gotten their masters. And they have a continuing effort to get those brethren who teach there over to Freed-Hardeman and up their education and information about the Bible and then teach it to others. But there's 21 schools of preaching. Have you ever heard of the Bear Valley Bible Institute in Denver? Okay, so I talk with them, and I've helped some of they have an extension program. They send some of their teachers over to see where Enugu is. It's 50 miles, that would be west, wouldn't it, to Abakaliki, Ebonyi State, the capital city. And there's a school of preaching there called CSMT, and I can tell you what those initials stand for, but won't take the time. But Bear Valley has been sending the last 5 to 7 years or so. They've sent teachers over. They'll send about 2 to 3 guys each time, and those guys will stay 2 weeks, and they will teach the staff master's work, they say, and then they teach the students, not quite as long, but they'll teach the students some courses, and they teach the staff to help bring the standard of the staff up so they can better instruct the students. But that's a good program. And then Bear Valley's been talking to me recently, in the last week or 2, there's a school of preaching in Ibadan called the Southwest School of Evangelism, SWSE, and they want to get going into that, and hopefully on my trip this year in 2012, Bear Valley is supposed to, they hadn't figured out who it's going to be yet, but they're going to send somebody over there to Ibadan. While I'm there, I will teach at that school for 1 week every morning, like February 27th through March the 2nd or something like that. I might have those dates just a little bit mixed up. February 28th through March 3rd, maybe it is. And Bear Valley's supposed to send somebody there, and then we're going to talk, and then they'll work with that school, and that school is aware of all of this about to happen to them and for them and with them, with Bear Valley. But they'll send a representative over and meet me and them and try to set things in place so that can start in October of 2012 is when each year they have a new intake of students at that particular school of preaching. So that's some of the ways that American brethren are involved in helping to push the gospel in Nigeria. But again, the strength of the brotherhood in Nigeria is right over here in this area. I suspect that 99% of your brethren, my brethren, in Nigeria are below those 2 rivers, the Niger and Benue rivers. And Ilorin's about 3 million. Ogbomoso is 4 million. Oshogbo is 1 million. Baden 15. Benin City 4 million. That's where you support Felix Ahigietor right here in Benin City. And in Lagos they got 112 churches of Christ. The last count, Ibadan has about 40. Oshogbo has 2. Ogbomoso has 2. Ilorin has 6. The further from the strength of the brotherhood you go north and west, the less people know about the restoration movement and so forth. Tell you one more thing, then we'll just see some pictures. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be glad to tell you I don't know, or I know, or I'll give you some kind of an idea if I can. But we can all participate on any question that you might have. Before we go, Felix, I wanted to mention, we've got 73 pictures on this slide. I don't know that we'll get them done. I usually don't. But I want to leave this with Gary. This is 353 pictures. And if anybody has computers, we can start with Gary. And if he doesn't want to see them, then he can pass it on to whoever wants to see pictures of my trip earlier this year. What I wanted to tell you was Felix, that congregation, the Uselu Church of Christ, had a member in it who now lives in the U.S. His name is Ig, and it's AIG is the first 3 letters, and it's got 6 or 7 syllables. And he was called Mundy for so many years, but he has people in the U.S. call him Ig, but it's Ig Imogo. And Ig, so Felix knows Ig well. Ig was a registered nurse who worked at the University of Benin teaching hospital for a number of years, and then because of tests that he was able to take internationally, he got on with Shell Oil Company, and he moved to, his wife stayed here in Benin City, and then he would commute down to Warri and be on 2 weeks with Shell, and then off a week, and then 2 weeks of work, and so forth. When he got to working for Shell in the surgical operating room for Shell and those workers there, he began to make about $1,300 a year. This was about 6 or 7 years ago, but that's pretty big money for a Nigerian. And when you have money as a Nigerian, you still don't usually try to show it. You play it down a little bit. No, he rented him a little old apartment place that cost him about 5,000 naira a month, which was 35 bucks a month. Had nothing in there except a mattress and a little table. He could sleep in there at night after he got off his shift. And then when he lived in Benin City, they lived on the 2nd floor of something that they rented that cost him 10,000 naira a month. And that's about $75 a month. But anyway, he's played it close to the vest. And he got to come to the U.S., and went through him and his wife, and we took care of the wife some years ago for 3 months while he trained at Orlando in the ways of American hospitals and so forth. They were a headhunter outfit in Orlando. They got him a job. He got linked up with a hospital in Phoenix, and that's where they live now. And they're members of the Camelback Church of Christ, or the Camelback Road Church of Christ. And but anyway, Ig's brother Sylvester, Ig is kid number 6 from their mama, and he's probably 45 now. Sylvester, his brother, is a preacher, and Felix knows Sylvester. Sylvester just turned 49 on Halloween night. But Sylvester has written 50 tracts. 50 tracts. And I'm going to read you the titles of these tracts. He's going to write another 50. I want you to hear the 50 tracts, because listen to the basic, fundamental titles of these lessons, and these things go all over the Nigerian brotherhood, Marvin. Lady the other day called and said, I'm sending $6 grand to get to Sylvester in your next wiring so that more of these tracts can be printed, and the $6 grand will print 240,000 of these tracts. And we're going to give 2,000 each to each of the preachers at the Great Workshop this next year. Well, if there's 450 preachers, then that'll be 90,000 of those tracts. So we'll go 2,000 to these preachers. But here's the titles of these tracts. Sylvester's a great writer, and he's in touch with some of the brethren in the U.S. who do writing, and they help him and steer him. But he still writes with a Nigerian a slant to it, because he knows his people and so forth. I've seen Americans who will read through these tracts, and they will go, wow, what does this mean? Well, it's completely out of our culture. We don't have that issue or that situation, and so we'll put them in email contact with Sylvester, and Sylvester can tell them what he's talking about in a particular tract. But listen to the titles of the tracts. The Three Dispensations, Are You Born Again? What Must I Do to Be Saved? The Church of Christ, the Old and the New Testaments, Baptism, True Worship, Music in Christian Worship, Tithes and Tithe Paying. The Church of Christ is not a denomination. Religious titles, Unity in Christ, Salvation in Christ, the Christian and Alcohol, the Christian and Culture, Christians and Christmas, Christians and Worldliness, Death, Sin, Salvation, Majority in Religion, the Blood of Jesus, Holy Ghost fire, holy water, anointing oil, how God speaks to us today, religious authority, how to become a Christian, that's number 28. The rapture, the gospel of Christ, counterfeit gospels, false prophets and fake pastors, the devil, marriage, number 1, God's pattern for marriage. Marriage, number 2, God's purpose for marriage. Common questions about marriage, number 1. Common questions about marriage, number 2. Common problems in marriage, number 1. Common problems in marriage, number 2. The Christian home. Corruptions in marriage. Alcohol and its consequences. Emotional versus spiritual worship. Credit marriage, number 1. You ever heard about that? I'm not going to talk about that today, but credit marriage, number 2. The broad way is number 46. The narrow way, 47. Do religious people need conversion? Number 48. Immodest dressing, number 49. Modest dressing, number 50. Now, there are several that I know are issues over in Nigeria, certainly in the culture and sometimes even in the church. And we are seeing some change starting to come into Nigeria. And you know, we hear about change and change agents in our country. And if you're on top of things, if you're a pretty good Bible student, if you care what God says, you're able to spot those changes pretty easy. And so I think your church leadership here would know what the changes are that some brethren are trying to make in the churches of Christ here. Well, in Nigeria, it's some different changes that you wouldn't have heard here, but they are change nevertheless. And some of it comes from the Pentecostal man-made churches over there that go on, and some of those Pentecostal groups are really big. And so then some of our brethren who are not well grounded, and they've been to a preaching school, and then they start preaching somewhere, and in a few years, if they're not careful, then they kind of get back into some of their old ways. And so there's a little bit of that going on, especially in not in Felix's area at all, but in the southeast corner where the strength of our brotherhood is in Nigeria. And so when it begins to affect some of our larger congregations, we know that, we've got a problem. And so this next year at the Great Workshop, the topic is Back to the Bible. And we have 12 one-hour lessons, and 2 of the lessons are going to be about change and change agents, and what are we talking about, and how should we respond to them, and so forth and so on. Some of the changes have to do with prayer, Marvin. In prayer, some brethren apparently, somehow they are taking sand and acting like sand when they pray has some kind of, makes your prayer more special or something like that. And I've just been starting to hear about that. And then sometimes some brethren are facing the east when they pray. Getting the whole congregation to face east. Ain't that just, see, we say, that's nuts. But, you know, some of the stuff that we do over here is just nuts too. And something slips in, and the next thing you know, you got a bigger problem than what you ought to have. And so anyway, we'll be trying to stem some of that, and that's starting to happen in the southeast corner. And Felix and them, that congregation is as solid as can be, in my view, based on what I know about them and then know some of the brethren in that congregation. But anyway, Sylvester is somebody who is a big help to all of the brotherhood, and Felix knows him, and Felix was a preacher for the congregation where Sylvester's brother was for a number of years. All right, let's see some pictures. We've got about maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and here's, here, I can turn it. Yeah. All right, here's pictures of traffic and the roads, and then the foods, and you've seen those types of pictures before, but just notice how crowded things are, and that's in one of the big cities over there. And then here's the hawkers. I don't know if I've ever talked to you about these guys, and sometimes they are girls, and they might be anywhere between the ages of 13 and 35, and female or male, it doesn't matter. And they are on big roads, and when you've got a bad road and a lot of traffic and everybody has to slow down and you go through potholes and everything. That's where they sell this stuff, and people buy things. There's everything you can need or want that are sold out of boxes and stuff by these younger people. And as you begin to pick up speed, you know, these kids, they're selling it to you through the glass windows, you know, and you're telling them I want 5 of those and 2 of that, and how much is it, and they're telling you, and then you start to pick up speed, and then, boy, they're running along like that. I don't know how they keep from, I'm sure some of them do sprain their ankles and stuff, but anyway, that's how they get their goods to everybody over there in a lot of ways. Then here's the police, and I've mentioned police before. Tell you one story, the caption there, traffic on the road, do you feel safer with police around? The police are often in cahoots with the criminals, the thieves and robbers and bandits on the roads, and that's not a good thing, and I want to tell you one story about them in a minute. But sometimes, no, every time, when you see police, you can tell pretty quick when you get close to them, or you can see how they're acting with vehicles in front of you. You can find out, are they on drugs? Have they been smoking marijuana? Are they drunk? By their behavior, and depending on how they behave, is certainly cues you into how you should act. And if they are out of their heads, so to speak, then we are really quiet, really respectful, and don't say anything, try to get by without any trouble. And if they're not, well, you can have some nice dialogue with those people. But anyway, they carry those rifles, and if they're out of their head on drugs or something, then they might accidentally shoot. Sometimes they drop their rifles and they go off. I've told you, if I haven't, I've seen soldiers, but police shoot into the back of buses. They call these things, like, that's a police vehicle, but a van, they call them buses, and there might be 20 people in there. Sometimes vans don't stop at checkpoints the way the police want you to, and I've seen 2 times in my career of going over to Nigeria, them open fire on a van trying to shoot out the tires. Sometimes they don't get the tires, they get into the van, and people have been killed, and so you're just really apprehensive around the police. Some of our brethren are policemen, and you want to believe that they are good, and I think that they're good, and until they prove me that they're not, I'm going to think that they're good. But there's a lot of badness among the police. Here's something that happened this last year while I was over in Nigeria. It was in March, and I'm trying to think through. This was this year. I don't think I told you this last year. I don't think it's 2010. Yeah, it's this year in March. I'm in Ibadan, so I'm going to back up that one slide. Oop. Yeah, I'm going to go back up 2 or 3. Here we go. I'm in Ibadan right here. And this made the national news, made the radio at night, made the TV, talked about it the next day and stuff like that. Some police on the highway between Ibadan and Benin City. And that generally takes about 5 hours. And there are big double-decker buses that carry people from one place to the other on these highways. And so it was one of these double-decker buses that on this highway here, on that stretch, they were stopped on the highway by robbers. Now here's how this works. The robbers come to the police that they're in cahoots with, and they say, get off this section of road for 4 hours. We're going to rob for a while. And the police are going to get part of whatever is taken and so forth. So that goes on regularly. And I know, as you're driving along and you're expecting to see police at these various checkpoints, when you don't see police, if you're alert enough to think about it, it's time to stop and go a different direction, because there might be something bad going on just up ahead. And you know, when you don't mow grass on the side of the highways and stuff, and you got bush way up here, and you got winding roads, you just swing into there and you are, whoops, they come from behind you, and there's all these other cars, everybody's out of their cars, they're just robbing and taking their time, and you're trapped. You're part of the group that's going to get robbed. And when they rob you, you know, they get out of the vehicle, you take off your clothes, they take whatever they want. On this double-decker bus, there was 80-something people on it, and they had to do all this. They took everything they wanted. They weren't satisfied with their take, the robbers, so they had the people lay down on the highway. A couple of the robbers got on the bus, and then they drove the bus back and forth over those people. And they killed 42, I think it was, or 44 people. And you know, that is terrible. That is just shocking. I'm getting hardened where, you know, I just kind of keep moving and thinking. But that's terrible if you've never heard of something like that before. And that's what goes on in Nigeria. So many of them don't value life. They've got a terrible life and not much anyway. And they just take from you and do it to you whatever they want to. It's terrible in a lot of ways. I could tell you some stories about brethren who have, not for doing nothing, get thrown into jail by the police. And you're not going to get out of that jail until some money changes hands. And our brethren will sit there in jail and cry and squawk and hope for and so on. You'll be in the jail 3 months or 6 months before somehow you get out and some price is agreed on. It's just because somebody says something about you and they've got an in with the police or in with the judge, and the police are going to make some money out of this deal. And that goes on. And so it's when you don't have law and order, justice, that's where you go with it. And I worry about our country somewhat. And I suspect you do too. Let's see. Here's the roads. I'll step back this way. You get stuck in things like that sometimes. We did get stuck in that. And this has happened at other places. And whenever we get stuck, we're in a van. Whenever we get stuck, the brethren won't let me get out and walk through something like that, And so there's usually some younger brother who I get on their back. And those Nigerians, I'm a giant to them, most of them, They're all pretty much smaller than me in the brotherhood. Not all of them, but just about. 95% of them are. And it'll be somebody about this size, and they're 25 to 35, man, and they have me get on their back, and I always feel embarrassed about that. But I don't want to get my feet wet either up to my knees. And so we tease about that, and I always tell them, if you come to the U.S. and we get stuck like this, you can get on my back. I won't let you go through American water. We're going to keep your feet dry. But anyway, there's a nice road, see? Now, no roads have speed limits that I've ever seen over there yet. You don't see any sign that says how many kilometers per hour you can drive and something like that. Boy, people are lickety-splitting down the road. Unfortunately, vehicles have bad tires, and they're older vehicles, and so you have a lot of fatalities over there in Nigeria. Big semis, they plow into cars all the time and just kill people. And you see semis and cars and people dead with the sheets over them. I'll see an accident or two every trip where, there's dead bodies. And there might be people gathered around, or maybe that's happened a while before and they haven't taken up the bodies, but they got sheets on them and stuff like that, and burned vehicles and so forth. Let's see. Maybe I do this. Yeah, here's some foods, and you've kind of seen these foods before. I don't think I've ever showed you yam porridge. Everything you see in that is made out of yam, not sweet potato, but just yam this big, and it's kind of like the taste of a harsh Irish potato, and they make that out of it. That's good. You would like that, I promise you. Even when you first taste it, you say, "Now that's pretty good." And then there's a typical breakfast for me. It's rice and plantain, fried plantain, pretty big pieces. Usually the pieces are smaller, and I might have 10 littler pieces, but there's a boiled egg, and then that's black-eyed pea, and that'll be my breakfast. And sometimes it's just beans. And, I might have beans 3 times a day. Usually I just eat twice a day. I might have beans 3 meals in a row. Morning, night, the next morning you got more beans, And at some point I say, that's enough beans for now. That'll carry me for a while. But anyway, I eat generally 2 meals a day, and I'll eat about half that rice. And there's usually a little sauce to spice up that rice. But that's pretty good breakfast. And then there's fish, and the Nigerians love fish head because Nigerians eat bone, and they eat fish bone, and they eat chicken bone, and they just grind it away. And they offer me the head when they're going to have fish. If it's somewhere where I hadn't been before, staying with somebody, whenever it's time to eat supper, here you go, and you get the head. Well, I don't want the head, and I don't want bone, and so, my standard line, if I hadn't told you, if I told you last year or the year before, you've probably forgotten. But if you're like me, but, I say, oh, thank you so much. We do not eat that in our culture, in our country. And if I ate this, it might upset my stomach some. I might get a little sick. And if I get a little sick, then I cannot do my work. And you would not want me to not do my work for Christ with you, would you? And they don't want that. So someone else can have this, whether it's the fish head or whatever kind of food it is that I'm going, first time I've ever seen it, I better take this easy. Others love it and want it and so forth. So that gets me out of the jam. But the fish, otherwise, that's good. That's delicious, you know. And I'm not a big fish guy, but boy, I like Nigerian fish. And you just got to kind of be careful about little bones in it. That's, you know, take bread and sop up that sauce and that fish. Now this is the eba right there, you know. It looks like coagulated cream of wheat. So picture 15 Nigerians getting together and having a big platter of this stuff on it, and a lady will bring it out, and we'll all sit there, and they have a bowl of water, and you put your hand in the water and then wipe it off on something, because you're just rinsing your hand, because you want to clean your hand, right? And then everybody starts dipping in and eating, rolling it up into a ball, and then they dip it into that. In this case, vegetable is how they pronounce vegetable. Vegetable soup. Sometimes it's a sauce or a stew, but you'll dip it into something. That's what gives that coagulated cream of wheat type textured eba some flavor. And you know, you could eat that, but I'm pretty careful about, you know, I'll get the little sauce on the edge, you know, but I don't know what all that is and who's handled it. Of course, when it's cooked, you're pretty safe. Then that coagulated cream of wheat like stuff called eba or gari, it comes from the cassava plant, another tubular plant that grows under the ground, and it looks like about the size of a big banana. You know, maybe 2 bananas no bigger than 2 bananas wide. And it kind of looks like a banana when you dig it out of the ground, but it's hard. And it goes through a 17-step process to make that coagulated cream of wheat like stuff. And there's pineapple, and you'd love the pineapple. I'm not a big fruit guy either, but when I'm over there, somebody will seem to get a pineapple about once a week wherever I'm at. And, oh, would you like some pineapple for dessert? Well, I sure would. And that is delicious. You get plenty of water, rain over there and so forth. There's plantain chips, and that's just a little snack, and everybody would like that. But, you know, they're fried in oil, and so you have diarrhea pretty easy from all that if you eat too much of that. Plantain trees, and that's, here's what they look like growing on those trees, and they look like a banana, but they don't taste like a banana. And they're fried and boiled. You know, that plantain, for a diabetic, that's the main medicine, quotes around it, that a Nigerian diabetic takes. There's a number of Nigerians with diabetes, and when they find out they've got it, then they start eating that plantain, not fried, just kind of, is it boiled, and it's bland, but that's what they eat, and it helps them. There's cashew nuts, that's pretty good. And there's my jar of peanut butter. I always take a jar of peanut butter for times when they're going to give me fish head, and I say, oh, I think I'll just have a piece of bread and some peanut butter tonight. That works out pretty good. And there's cold Coke. And you get that, if somebody says, hey, and I'm not a big pop drinker either. I drink water just about at every meal, but if somebody says, hey, we can get you a cold mineral, they might mean Sprite, they might mean orange, they might mean 7-Up or Pepsi or Coke, I'll say, boy, bring it, get it if you can. And so, boy, then that's nice to have, because it's always hot over there. It's hot and dry. Now here's some of the staff. We're getting some pictures. We've got about 5 minutes. This is some of the Southwest School of Evangelism that Bear Valley Bible Institute in Denver is going to be working with in the coming year. There's a van back here. Anyway, there's Macandee Alufame. This is in Ibadan. There's about 40 congregations in Ibadan, but Macandee is the director of this school. This guy used to be a Muslim, Monapi, and he has been a Christian for about 14 years now, but his background is Muslim. You know, if the Muslims in the south of Nigeria, and there are a few of them, I mean, when you say a few, in that highly populated area, you're talking about a lot, but compared to everybody else, they are in the extreme minority. In the north, Muslim is just almost all Muslim, and there's 51% Muslim in that country, but in the south, they're around other religions, and these Muslims, and so they have and they're in the minority, so they have a more passive view about their own practice of Islam, and you can teach and reach Muslims. You know, Sylvester Imogo, the guy who wrote this tract, he married a Muslim, except she was a member of the church when he married her. They've been married 15 years or something like that now, or 14, something. And, you know, I've met all of the extended family of his wife, and, you know, most of them, there's about 11 of them, and that whole family, they're all Muslim, except Sandra came out of Islam. anyway, there's McIntyre's wife, Esther. She's a lovely lady, and they got 4 kids, and they take care of 2 adopted kids, orphans that are 14 and 16. And there's a student, and there's a student, and so forth. And then here's a picture of those guys. Now, you see the different ages? They're all men of maturity. There was like 12 or 14 of them that were to graduate. And this guy right here, in my computer, in the folder, Gary, if I'd composed myself enough to grab it before I came in, I was going to read you his bio. When I go teach at these preaching schools, that's not my forte particularly, but in the morning time I can do some teaching from 9 to 12 at any of these schools. If I'm in the area, that's what they'll want me to do. You teach from 9 to 12, and then in the afternoon and evening you're having a World Bible School seminar somewhere. And but anyway, when I teach at any of these schools, whoever's responsible at the school will hand me, here's the resumes of the students, so that I can see the names and a little bit about each of the students. And I was always impressed by Raphael, this guy right here, because he's about 67 or 68 years old this year, and he was from the Strength of the Brotherhood in the southeast corner of Nigeria. He had come all the way across to this preaching school in Ibadan for studying, and he's married and has 6 kids, and there's 5 boys and 1 girl, and the girl's married to a preacher, and all 6 of the kids are out of the house, and they're members of the church. And he lists when he converted from Roman Catholicism and his position or work in the various local churches of Christ that he's been a member of. And now he comes to the school, and it says the aim. One of the things on these set of resumes was, what is your aim? And his first point is to be a soul winner. Number 2, to be active in evangelism throughout this country. And it was just, I thought, wow, what a great, it's people like that I get to work with over there, and I love that. Good brethren right here. Don't have much, work hard. Christianity at large, I'm not talking about churches of Christ, but Christianity at large is out in front of the public. Nobody hangs their head in shame about anybody being or calling themselves a, quote, Christian. Nobody's afraid to talk about, yeah, I'm a Christian. Oh, you are? Well, what are you? And then they get more refined in their definition of what they are. That's out there. And these guys are talking to people all the time. It doesn't matter where they're at. And I heard 1 bell. Did I hear 1 bell? Have we got 5 more minutes? Or is that the first bell? That's the second bell. Got to stop. There's one of the teachers and his family. Isn't that a lovely looking family? He gets $25 a month, Marvin, from a congregation in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Sunday come, then whatever the local church is paying him where he preaches, and then teaching at that school of preaching, he gets a little from them. That's how he makes it. Beautiful kids. There's Raphael. I'll just kind of keep talking until we're driven off. I won't talk but about 2 more minutes. I don't want to make you mad at me. There's Onapi, the former Muslim. And there's our van that we have with materials. And everywhere we go, we've got a load of materials. Marvin, the Mission Printing out of Arlington, Texas, they've shipped 3 shipping containers to Nigeria this year. One in the southeast, where the Strength of Brotherhood is. One in the south central at CSMT School of Preaching, Abakaliki. And one to Western Nigeria Christian College, another school of preaching in the southwest, near Ibadan, but in a place called Abeokuta, Ogun State. And in those containers, 750,000 tracts in each of those containers. So the brethren in Nigeria have 2,250,000 tracts that they're using, and so forth and so on. So, boy, they, read. How to teach. That's what goes on in Nigeria and in the Brotherhood. Got a flat tire. Maybe I'll stop. I need to stop, don't I? Okay. Here's the last story I'll tell you. I had 2 injuries over in Nigeria this year, and one of them happened right on that hill. And I'm teasing. That steep mountain I fell down, that was about like 2 of these communion tables. It was just a slope, and we were going somewhere to baptize somebody, and I always like to go last as we go down things like this. I've got tennis shoes on, and I've slipped before. Well, this time going down, and all the brethren are down there, and then there's this pond of water where this young man was going to be baptized. I'm coming down, and I slipped. And I went this way, and to catch my balance, then I did it, and I rolled a somersault. I went completely over and came up and was still on the ground, but hit some brethren's knee right here in my ribs. And my rib hurt me. And 3 days later, I finally called my wife. I said, Diane, I can hardly, I was kind of breathing like that, and so forth, complaining. She goes, down the street from us is one of the members at Westside. He's a doctor, Jeff Lamadou. So she said, let me call Jeff. And then the next thing, she gave me Jeff's number. She says, you talk to him. So I called Jeff and talked to him. Jeff said, get an x-ray immediately. Okay, but I'm not anywhere around an x-ray. It's going to be 2 days before I get an x-ray as soon as you can. Okay, so we get to the place where I'm going to take an x-ray. We did a World Bible School seminar. We're going to the next place. It's evening, not quite evening, 5, 6 o'clock. We're going, here's the hospital. We go there, and then the doctor sees me, gives me an x-ray, checks it out, and he says, you're nothing but a whiny American. You don't have a break. It's just a bad bruise. You'll be all right. And he gave me medicines. And that whole thing, the x-ray, and then the doctor's consultation fees, it was 2 bills. The total cost was 1,800 naira. 1,400 for the x-ray, 400 for the visit, 1,800 naira. That's about $12. So I've decided that anytime I have any health problems, I'm going to fly over to Nigeria because I can take care of them cheaper over there than I can here in America. Thank you, brethren. Thank you for the support that you give me in this work. Really. I mean, I really mean that. I like doing what I'm doing. I'm involved with a lot of good people throughout this country, including you all. And people are concerned about getting the gospel message in Nigeria, and I'm dealing with great brethren. And Felix, whom you support, is one of them. It's just I didn't get to see him at all in 2011, and we'll see him in 2012, and we'll work with him in 2013. Then I can say, well, here's how things really are, what I observed, and so forth. Got that building construction project going on there, and we keep raising a little money. I don't remember what I have them down for, Gary. It's out in the car. Either $300 to $500. That's what I keep helping every year. And then that thing will slowly get finished. I believe they're meeting in it. Is that right? Okay, see, but it's kind of an uncompleted building. Doesn't have it just like they want. But God bless you all for being involved in Nigerian evangelism. We'll take us a quick break.